Assalamu alaikum. All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Yes, I uploaded them about an hour ago. So check, Ayan, maybe refresh it. I did upload them. Check them out, inshallah. Let me know if you don't see them. But if you do see it, it should look like that. Let me share. Good, alhamdulillah, wonderful. I'll share my screen in a minute. Surat AlAsr. I remember a few years ago, I was in Houston, attending an Am summit with Sheikh, with Al-Maghrib. And Sheikh Walid Basuni, on the first night of classes, he led us in Salah, and in the first rak'ah, he read Surat Al-Asr, and then in the second rak'ah, he read again Surat Al-Asr. And then when he was done with the Salah, he did a small khatira, a small reminder, and he said, if you've noticed, I read Surat Al-Asr the first time, and I read it the second time. No, I didn't do it because I didn't have anything else to read, and no, like I was very intentional in reading it 2 times. And then he kind of gave a small summary about what the surah is about, and he was encouraging us. He said, a student of knowledge, like you can't forget the importance of this surah and everything that it entails for your life, the lessons that it contains. And I remember he reminded us of how Imam al-Shafi'i, he used to say that if Allah had only revealed Surat Al-Asr in the whole Quran, it would have been sufficient for mankind. It would have been like an sufficient lesson or sufficient reminder for them, like what they need. So inshallah, like we'll see how in just 3 short verses what everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, or he wants us to be mindful of and know and live our lives according to. So I'll go ahead and we'll listen to the surah together, and you have your notes and we'll go over it inshallah. So Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us that which will benefit us. May Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge, and may Allah teach us what we need to know from this surah and give us the tawfiq to implement it, Ya Rabbil Alameen. So I guess
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ.
So with this surah, it's a Makki surah. There wasn't a purpose of revelation that I could find for it. I went through different sources and I couldn't find a purpose of revelation. Just so it's like a general surah, the lessons in it or what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing. It's just a general fact of life, I guess. The objectives, or what are the themes that are covered in the surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about time, the importance of time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fact that mankind is in two states, either loss or success. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us like loss is general, and then he tells us the categories of success. And then what are the categories of success? There's personal, and then there's communal, community level, having faith, doing good deeds, supporting one another as a community, as individual, like as groups, as communities, in that which is right, which is correct, the haqq, and encouraging with one another with patience and being able to continue until the end. So some of the virtues of this surah, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, whenever they would end a gathering, there isn't a specific hadith about doing this, but whenever they would be together, they're ending a gathering, they would read Surat AlAsr. So if you've seen some, some speakers, some scholars, like whenever there is a gathering and there is an end, they will recite Surah Al-Asr. Imam Shafi'i, which we already talked about, Imam Shafi'i would say that this surah, if it was, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only revealed this surah, it would have been sufficient for mankind because of the important lessons that it contains for all of humanity, not just for Muslims. So, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, he says, Inna al-insana, indeed mankind, human beings, all of us. Like he just doesn't say only the believers, that humankind is divided into two categories, is all in loss, is all in a state of loss. Before I jump to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually starts by AlAsr, by time. And whenever we see this wow has two, obviously different meaning. The letter wow in Arabic is means and it also means if it's just a phrase, AlAsr, والضحى والليل, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using that wow to swear by whatever that comes after it, to say wala umrika, by your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using the letter wow to swear by whatever that comes after it. Innal insana, indeed all of mankind, all of human beings are completely immersed in a state of khusr. And khusr here is used in a general sense, not specific type of loss, all kinds of loss. What kind? Depends on what you're talking about. But it's a general type of khusr. Lafi is in, the word la is the letter lam in this word right here. The letter lam shows emphasis. Fi is when you say something is you're inside of it. So this tea bag is completely inside the cup. So it's completely inside of it. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except for those who have iman and they do good deeds. وَتَوَاصَلْ, they encourage one another, they support one another, بِالْحَقِّ, with the truth, or that which is right. وَتَوَاصَلْ بِالصَّبْرِ, and they encourage and support one another with that which is with patience. Okay? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran swears by anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, because he's the creator of it, he has the right to swear by whatever he wants. However, in our aqidah, in the creed of Muslim, we are only allowed to swear by Allah himself. We're not allowed to swear by anything else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the reason why that's important is that sometimes people, in the Arab culture, or even today, we say, I remember when we were younger, in the curriculum Arabic, we would say وحياة أمي, by the life of my mother, or we would swear by the life of someone important to you, meaning may I lose them if this is not true. And that does not belong to us. That belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, or not swearing by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it's a very Egyptian thing to say, when Nabi, by the Prophet, I swear, it's simple, it's people use it in spoken language, but then this is in the Islamic, our Islamic aqidah, we're only allowed to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why can Allah swear by anything else? Because he created it. right? Because he created it, it belongs to him. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does that in the Quran, in the sciences of tafsir, it talks about how when Allah swears by something, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us the significance of that thing, the importance of that thing, and He wants us to think about it, reflect on it, and draw lessons. What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to? What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to? So when Allah swears by AlAsr, what is it about Asr? What does it mean first? And so we talk about the explanation of it. The scholars give different definitions. And then what is important about it? Why is it? And then reflecting on how am I using that? What's my state with that? And living, like, and then so are we implementing that? Are we living that? So anytime we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing by something, we're supposed to pause and say, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choosing this specific thing to swear by it? And there's so many things in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will swear by. Ibn Abbas, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Al-Asr, the word Asr in Arabic means to squeeze something, right? It literally, like, just the linguistic meaning, it means to squeeze something. So if you take an orange and you squeeze it, you're doing asr. And then that juice is called asir, something that you juiced out. Like, you squeezed it so much that you took something out of it. So how does it relate to this, to the concept of to the concept of time? Is Ibn Abbas, he says that it's a specific time in the day. It's a time of Asr, like when the sun is at a certain location in the sky, until it gets to another certain place. So that's a time of the day. And then as Muslims, we have a salah that is obligatory at that time. So it's Salatul Asr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about. Then other scholars say that it is, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about this specific time, but then Asr is like, also means ad-dahru kullu, all of time, lifetime. Like your days, your nights, your evenings, your weeks, your months, you name it, all of your lifetime is called Asr, when in Arabic, when we're saying في هذا العصر الحالي, like in this current times that we're living, so this is a word that shows more than just a specific time between like after Dhuhr and before Maghrib. It shows more than that. It shows lifetime, okay? But if it was speaking about Salat al-Asr itself, because some other scholars hold that opinion, Salat al-Asr itself is also something very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He tells us to be mindful and to protect and safeguard all of our salawat, and specifically Salatul Asr, the middle one. The Prophet ﷺ said that middle one is Salatul Asr. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, it's a hadith, whoever misses Salatul Asr, then it is as if he has been robbed of his family and his wealth. So what is our state? What is the state of our hearts and minds over Salatul Asr specifically? Why Salatul Asr? Because it's a time where people are tired, people are, busy. They're very busy with dunya, So those who remember Allah, who prioritize Salatul Asr, they are taking the time and their attention out of their dunya and saying, I'm going to dedicate this time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why it's also important to do our evening adhkar. And evening adhkar end up being like, for me, as like, when my schedule changes, I realize being able to sit there for 10-15 minutes in the Asr time is very difficult when you coming out of work, going to work, heading to school, picking up kids, families coming home, families leaving. It's a time of transition, right, between the day and the night. And times of transition this is why, like, worship is highly encouraged at that time. But who has that time? Who dedicates that time? The people that are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the most correct opinion, the most popular opinion is that it's speaking about the concept of time itself, your whole lifetime. So why is the whole concept of time significant? Like, why is this so important? You know, there's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us in the Quran. And so what's interesting, I have a question at the end of this slide here. And I say, how many times does Allah swear by time in the Quran? So in this surah, Allah takes the timing of Salat al-Asr, right? But then, and then it means also all of lifetime. But in other surahs, Allah says, wal fajr, by the morning, like early morning. And then he says, wal duha, like midday. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wal layl, by the nighttime. Then here, wal asr, that like middle of the day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like swears by different times of the day, to again and again and again bring our mind to the concept of the time, and also to the specific acts that you do at that moment of time. So the Prophet ﷺ tells us, and we'll say more about that part in a few more slides. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that لا تزول قدم عبد, on the day of judgment, like a person will not leave like the sight of Allah, will not leave, will not come to the day of judgment, will not come to the day of judgment unless he is asked about his life. How did he consume it? His knowledge, what did he do with it? His wealth, how did he earn it, and how did he dispose of it? And his body, how did he wear it out? Okay. Now this is a hadith that brings together, like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Prophet ﷺ tells us your life, think of everything that you are doing, your whole entire life that you have done, your early years, your middle years, your late years, the summers, the weekends, your mornings and evenings, and everything, okay? Because that's what life is. Life is actually like you using the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And what have you basically produced in that time? So imagine standing in front of Allah and being asked, I gave you 60 years to live. I gave you 70 years to live. I gave you 35 years to live. I gave you 26 years to live. What have you done with it? And going over your records and saying, this is what I have done. This is why I did it. This is who I did it for, you know? And then, so that's like the four concepts, like the time, your knowledge, your wealth, and your body. And if those four are straight, person's life is straight, you know? Person's life in this dunya is straight, but then when they also meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they present their life, inshallah, everything will be straight as well. The Prophet ﷺ also says that there's two blessings that we all take for granted, kind of like what I was telling you guys earlier, health and free time, you know? And wallahi, this is like a lesson for me right now, because with me like coming to my due date and thinking the baby hasn't come, I'm not busy, I'm not occupied, I have all the time, you know, in the world, I'm not sick, like alhamdulillah, I was a little sick, but not sick enough to be in bed and not be able to move. I'm free to move around with my body and go where I want to go. It's like, how are you using this time? How are you taking advantage of this time? Because there comes days when you're just feeling like, I can't do anything, I have to be in bed, or I can't do anything, I have to be at work, or I have to be in class, or have an assignment to do, or my child is here and I need to take care of that child. But then there comes times when you just don't have any of those responsibilities and you just have free time, completely free time. Do we take advantage of that? What do we do with that time? We will be asked about that time. So being mindful of that. There's a video I want us to watch, because what happens is that nowadays, what we are accustomed to when we are asked about time is that we say, I don't have time. Whereas the concept of time in Islam, everybody has it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to everybody. Everybody has the same amount of time. It's like an asset. It's like something where, like me, if I go to the next slide, we see Sheikh Ratib al-Nabulsi says, time is your capital and your container for righteous deeds. And it is a price of your Jannah, right? So if you took the concept of time and you put it, like you brought out a jar like this and you said, this is the time Allah has given me. And everybody has the same amount of time. It's all a matter of what I fill it with, because on the day of judgment, I'm going to come and I'm going to bring this jar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to say, this is like here, I'm presenting this. So Sheikh Ratib al-Nabulsi is saying, if you want Jannah, you are supposed to bring this jar and say, Ya Allah, like this is the price. And obviously we get into Jannah by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But the more we do, the higher ours, like the if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from us, we're also buying our location in Jannah. Like if you want Jannah till Firdaus, what you do for that is different than what you do for just to be entered into Jannah, or to be like, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from any punishment. You see what I mean? So your price to Jannah, like this is what I'm offering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the hope that I'm seeking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm saying, Ya Allah, like I've done this and I'm hoping that it will let me go into Jannah. Is it sufficient price? Of course not. But you get what the Shaykh is trying to emphasize, right? So there is this concept of in our modern day today, and I'm guilty of this, is we always say, I don't have time for this, or my time doesn't let me do that. But then who is in charge of time? Allah gives it to us, but then it's our responsibility to manage it, to use it efficiently, and do the things that bring about barakah in our time, right? So a person, so this is something Dr. Haifa gave, and it's a very, like, it was an example that really hit me so hard. She talked about how two women can get into the kitchen, and both of them have 1 hour. One will just make salad, and the other one will make a whole meal in that 1 hour. What is the difference? Is that one of them is a lot more efficient and has a lot more barakah in her time. So how do we get that? You know, how do we, these are the things that we think about. We have the same amount of time, but you could do so much more than I can do. And what is it that you're doing differently that allows you to bring so much more out of your life and your time? So let's watch this video together. This is not the PowerPoint. Let me open the PowerPoint.
This is your life. Looks pretty full, doesn't it? That's because it is. It's full of all the things you'd be incomplete without. Love, family, food, water, health, your parents, your passions. With all of these things, you could have nothing else and still lead a full life. But even with all of this, you'll still have some space to fit more things. Smaller things. This is your job, your car, your house, money. Things that are still important. But if you took them all away, your life would still be full. If you're watching this video, that means you're lucky enough to have at least some of these things. If you're really lucky, and many of us are, you'll still have some space left over. These are the really small things. Watching a movie, playing a video game, sports, ice cream. Things that make your life that little bit nicer, but things that are really just trivial in the end. If you wanted, you could try to put these things first, wasting your time in front of the television or the computer, playing games, or whatever it might be. You could follow it up with the material things, money, cars, houses, clothes. But then when it comes time to try to fit in all the important things, you run out of space. Some things will have to be left out. And nobody wants that. So keep that in mind as you go through life. Put the really important things first, and then find space for the rest. If you run out, it really won't matter anyways. It's just the small stuff. Oh, one more thing to remember. No matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a few cups of coffee and a good friend.
You know, let me stop sharing and come back to you guys and ask you for your thoughts on that video. You know, the other day, it was Friday night, and I was thinking like, okay, I want to go hang out, do something fun, enjoy myself, take Imran and Munira with me, and my son and his friend. And then I started writing a message to like a group of my friends, and then I just deleted it. I was like, forget it, Khaltoon, just go home, rest, sleep, you know, prepare your notes for Sunday class, the Surat AlAsr, and you'll be, you know, you'll just go to bed and be okay. But knowing myself, I'm like, you know, some days I do better when I reach out to friends and I socialize. You know, I end up having a more productive time, you know. So I didn't send the message, and then my friend sent me a message, and she was like, let's go do something today. And I was like, no, I have too much to do, I can't do this, I can't do that, blah. I came up with all these excuses. And then I said to myself, Khaltoon, you know what, you can have this baby anytime, and you're not going to have this time again. So I called my husband and I said, come over, I'm gonna, you know, like, I want to leave, and give me the time, like tonight, you know. And he was like, yep, I'll be right there. And alhamdulillah for that. Alhamdulillah for that. I was like, you know, I'll be there in half an hour. He came in half an hour. I was ready. I fed Imran. I took care of everything, and then I left. And I had an amazing time. I laughed so much. I wasn't anxious anymore, because I've been feeling sort of anxious this whole like week. And I was like, it was that easy. It was that simple, you know. The next morning, I was thinking, get up and do some work. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna sleep in. Why do I have to get up? My mom said, come and let's go hang out and take her to her friend's house. I said, you know what? Why not go do that? And it's like, I went, and it was like, it wasn't just that it was empty time. There was like taking care of my mom's needs, taking her to a place where she was happy, seeing her friends and relatives. And on top of that, like, there was a dua circle, there was khair and benefit being shared. And, you know, like, there was a good cause that we went there for. And it was like, why do we sometimes tell ourselves that we don't have time to just do the simple things that bring about a smile on our face that could really change our mood and the way we even worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and shut these things off with thinking, I don't have time, you know. And that is from shaitan. Like, you know, whenever something benefits you, but then you say no to it, it's not serving you. It's not serving you well. And it doesn't put you in a good place. And if it doesn't put you in a good place, it also doesn't put you in a good place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who wins? Obviously, shaitan wins, you know? So that video, even though like it's talking about random life things, you know, like little things that we take for granted, it is so true, because we all have the same amount of time. If we put our priorities in place, we could fit everything else. And also, like, you know, I loved how he said work is actually like the pebbles, you know. Why? Because if you lose a job today, it doesn't mean that's the end of your life, you know. It's nothing makes it the end of your life, you know. So I thought that was really interesting perspective. And those who understand you know, like that like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this time to use it and to present something to him on the day of judgment. But also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his infinite mercy, allowed us to enjoy certain things, and enjoy family, and enjoy friends, and enjoy a cup of coffee. So do it, and take that time for yourself. Let me see here. I usually forget the notes that I have in here. I think we've shared everything on here. So, you guys don't have anything to add yet? So I'll go back and share my screen with you again. You can go ahead and just, whenever you have a question, whenever you have a reflection to share, please do share it, inshallah. So when you realizing the importance of time, we already talked about what Sheikh Ratib bin Nabusi said. Ibn Mubarak said, like him and Abu said he heard Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu say at the graveyard to somebody, this person is in need of 2 rak'ah nafila that you are all belittle more than this dunya and what entails in it. Meaning, if you were to go to a grave site and somebody is in the grave already and they've already passed away, the one thing that a person will regret is or wish for is, can I just go back and offer 2 rak'ahs? Those 2 rak'ahs, I'll be so sincere, I'll be so present, I'll make dua, I'll ask Allah, I'll seek repentance, I'll do in those 2 rak'ahs what will benefit me for an a lifetime to come. Not even a lifetime, eternity, forever. So we belittle it, not realizing the importance of it because we're heedless. But that person will not belittle it. There's another similar narration where Ali radiallahu anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's with somebody by the graveyard and he says to the person that is with him, if this person was to be given a second chance, what do you think they would be doing? And then the other person says, I would see them doing nothing but good. And then Ali ibn Abi Talib said, if it's not going to be this person, then let it be you. That person is not going to come out of the grave and they're not going to get a second chance. But you can get that second chance. So you have that chance. It's not that you're going to get it. You have that chance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people who are completely conscious of our time and how we use it. So before we go on, what I wanted us to do is take 5 minutes to do a self-assessment of what we did yesterday. I think I told you guys what I did yesterday. The day is a lot longer than what I had just said. So I am also going to take part of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video so that I don't make it unnecessarily long. But basically what I'm hoping you guys could do is take out a piece of paper and then just write the answers to these questions. And we'll do it for 5 minutes. You don't have to overthink it. Just write what came up for you. And then we'll talk about it. So how did you spend your hours yesterday, your day? What did you do when you first woke up? What did you do in the first few hours of the morning? And then what major duties did you complete? What was a good deed that you put time and effort in? How did you support someone else? And how much did useless distractions take from your day? So we all have distractions, but how much of it did it take from our day? And then how did you end your day? Like when you were going to bed, what was going on for you? So I'll give us 5 minutes. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Let me read this. Samar said, I'm realizing more and more in life that I need to give myself more time to reflect. I had to remind myself that it is important for a believer to worship and do things with our time, but also to reflect that it is not time. Of course. Oh my God. This was so interesting. I once read that Hassan al-Basri said that I do 1 hour of reflecting, tafakkur, tadabbur, is more beneficial to me than staying up the whole night in a state of qiyam. The whole night and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a state of qiyam. That 1 hour of reflection is like, I see it as more beneficial. And what's interesting is that we have lost the art of reflection, like to just sit there and be silent with our thoughts and let's hear what's coming up for us, to pay attention to them, and like what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to? We want to busy ourselves. We want to consume every minute with something, whether it is beneficial or not beneficial. But what we have forgotten is that reflection is also beneficial. That sometimes a person might just sit there under a tree and do nothing, like just sit there, or go in a canoe and do nothing, or just sit in your living room, drink a cup of coffee and say nothing, do nothing, talk to nobody, hold no phone, read no book. We see that time as time being lost. But when we speak about the art of mindfulness, like you're asked to give yourself that time, and that's when reflections happen. So thank you for bringing that up, Sama. Jazakillah khair. Just thinking, I feel like I'm wheezing today. Hold on. So let me ask you this. How did it go to just think about one day, like yesterday? How did it go? What lessons stood out to you? And that's it. Like, what lessons stood out to you? I think you, Aisha, you already shared that the social media can take valuable time away. I've realized that too. It's not that social media, like, we'll talk about it in a little bit too. It has so many other effects on us, to be honest, that okay. I will do my best to do that, Aisha. You could have done one more thing that makes you proud, like that. I hope everybody did it, you guys. I did mine. And what is my lesson? My lesson is the more dhikr we do, the more we stay focused and focus on priorities. When we take away dhikr that is important to us, we end up like sharing a whole lot of that day with in useless things, like sharing it with shaitan, basically. You know that yeah. Share more of your lessons and I'll continue to not take away from time. Someone said I need to see how I schedule my days. I'll show you something in a little bit. I have a couple of resources for you guys today, inshallah, and I'll share them as I go. So do this. You know, Ibn Mas'ud, he said, and I have it at the top of a schedule that I'm going to share it with you guys. I have never regretted anything more than a day of my life that has passed. I am closer, like basically my life has decreased, and my deeds, my good deeds have not increased. You know, so if we think of the jar that Sheikh Ratib al-Nablusi is talking about, it's like your jar is a day closer to its, you know, it's like meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the deeds or what's in it have not increased at all, you know. So this day is not a day that you're getting back at all. It's not a day that we're getting back at all. So to be mindful and think like, am I really utilizing this to the best of my ability? This is another exercise that you could do. We're not going to do it as a class, but I'm really hoping that we can all do, is taking everything that you did yesterday and putting it in one of these 4 categories. So there's a famous book, I think many of us know it. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. His son, Sean Covey, sort of remodified this. It's called the 4 quadrants of time management. And time, like we said, we all have the same amount of time. We just all manage it differently. We use it differently, right? So these 4 quadrants, one of my teachers taught us, Sheikh Tafseer Chowdhury, is that if you want to be successful, you want to put everything in number 2. Okay, everything you want to be able, the more you fit in number 2, the more you are somebody who is managing your time properly, right? Now, a person who's always living in the urgent quadrant, that means they have an exam tomorrow, they have not prepared for it at all. So today they have to cram everything. A person, they're late for work because they're always like they're not pacing themselves quite correctly. They are due, like they have a project and the project is due today and they're doing everything today. They had all this time before and they weren't using it from before. Their car breaks down. Why? Because the oil and like the engine has been giving them a sign for weeks and they did not pay attention to it. Whereas a person who prioritizes, they have an exam tomorrow, they've already put in like the past 2 weeks 20 minutes of study time every day that they were working towards this thing. And same thing with the project. Now, friend gets injured. This is a true emergency. This is something, oh, am I not sharing? I don't know if I'm sharing my slide with you. Sorry, guys, hold on. A person who is like, let's say your friend gets injured, this is a true emergency. It's not to say that emergencies will not come up. No, they do come up, and what we're not, but we're not always in a state of emergency. Somebody who's always turning off a fire is what happens to them. They're stressed out, they're overwhelmed, they are easily like they easily lose their patience. Okay, they easily, and we will talk about patience and what it means today. They easily lose their patience because they're just, everything is right here and it's just stressing them out. But if a person is a prioritizer, what they do is that they will look at their whole week's schedule and they will put the most important things in that schedule. Does that make sense? When they put the most important things in that schedule, they get it done, and then they have free time. That free time is where they can fit in the things that, like an urgent, my friend just got injured, I have an hour, I could go visit them. Or, you know, like, what do you call, somebody calls you and says, hey, you know, I need help with this. Can you come over? You say, I could come over at that time and I will get this done for you. You're able to help others. You're able to be there for others because they kind of put the yes man, people calling you, interruptions, people asking you for help. And in our deen, like, this is a time where you can actually get benefit. You could get khair, you could get ajr, you're helping your brother, you're supporting your brother, right? Or your sister. So we don't take it as unimportant, you know, but I've prioritized it. I have done my other responsibilities and now I'm ready. The slacker is the one who's watching too much TV, endless phone calls, endless excessive computer games, excessive social media time. And this person is basically, not doing anything with their time. It's like Imam al-Ghazali describes them like an animal who is just, all they do is graze, all they do is eat, all they do is sleep, all they do is waste their time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create us for that, you know? You could have time to watch TV. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you've prioritized it. You've given it a schedule. There's something I'm gonna look up and see if I can, maybe later, inshallah. All right. So this, I think you guys get the gist of it. Let me know if you have any questions about it. The important thing is to fit everything in number 2. So how can you do that? What would your schedule look like if you actually did that? And this is another resource that I have for you. I've created something called the ideal schedule of a Muslim woman or a Muslim person, mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do I take this back up? Good. Okay. So in this ideal schedule, you see and this is basically very idealistic, very, very idealistic. Many of us might not be able to do that. But what does it do? We're looking at our life as like one day of our life, you know? What can I do to get the maximum amount of benefit from this day? So you put in, my philosophy is like you put in worship first. You put in the times where you are doing ibadah, and you're rejuvenating yourself, taking care of yourself, you put those things that do not change. So waking up, doing your dhikr, doing your wudu, taking care of your health, your body, your tahajjud, your Quran, your istighfar. These are like if you're eating, if you're fasting, your suhoor, praying your fajr, eating your breakfast. These are things we all have to do. Nobody's going to miss it, right? But we're going to miss it, and we're not going to prioritize these things if I'm not conscious, if I'm not mindful of my day and what I'm going to do. Then there is that productive time, and we all have different things that keep us productive, whether it is, being home, taking care of our kids, or being home, writing and working from home, or being out at a job, or, whatever it is that is you're a student and you're taking classes or you're studying. So there is that productive time, and we all have different things, different times of productivity and different types of productivity that we have. So like giving yourself that time. But then we all have duha that we can take 5-minute break for and pray. And then we have the Surat al-Dhuhr that we all have to pray. We have, like AlAsr and giving ourselves that time to do our dhikr. And if you notice these in this schedule, you still have time to look at social media. You still have time to read a book if you want, for leisure. You still have the time to go and visit friends and be out and do all these things. But then you didn't do it at the expense of wasting the crucial focal point hours of your day that fills your jar with what benefits you, that makes you proud when you meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I also included something called the barakah of your time. And this barakah in our time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave all of us the same amount of time, but then there are specific things, like the Prophet ﷺ tells us, whoever starts their day by saying, whoever starts everything that they're doing with Bismillah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in it. What does barakah really mean? It actually just means an increase in something, and that it's sustainable. It stays for a longer period of time. Like when a camel just sits somewhere, it's tabarraka. Like it sits there and it doesn't leave for a very long time. And an increase in that which is khayr. So you have the same hour, we said, but you're able to do with it so much more than I can do with it. And if we look at the lives of major scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, Nawawi, they all, rahimahumullah, they died at a very young age, and they left encyclopedias of beneficial writings. And if you were, some scholars say, if you were to take what they wrote, it would show you that a person would have to spend the rest of their lives writing, just to write as much as they have written. Why? Because, they were dedicated to their work. They had to write intentions for it. It was very important to them. Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, you know how he died? He was somebody brought up a hadith and he had never heard of it, or he wanted to research it. And he went home. He told his family, do not interrupt me, closed the door. And he had next to him a big, jawan, a huge container of dates. And so as he's working on his hadith, he kept on eating the dates. And so he died because he overdosed on the dates. He was just so consumed with what he was doing that he overdosed on the dates, and he died. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. So it shows you all these different things. You can read it. Let me know if you have any questions. I put something in there called the Pomodoro technique. It really helps me. You could just Google it, find a YouTube video. The reason why this is, I feel like this is something I've learned so much about, because I struggled and I still struggle some days with this so much. Time, when we're created differently, and I'm not somebody who likes to follow a structure, but when I do follow a structure, I am so much better. And so what I needed to learn to get myself to forget this spontaneous person. You can't accomplish what you want to accomplish in life if you're just a spontaneous person. You really do have to use a schedule. When I started doing that, wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown me that we could become what we didn't expect ourselves to be. You know, we could become what we didn't expect ourselves to be. So you can look at that. And one of the exercises for this week is that you look at the schedule and you create something similar for your own self, right? And it doesn't have to be this like busy. It could be less. You could start where you're at, right? But everything I've included in here, I've included like the most recommended, the highly recommended wajiba, like the wajib. Obviously we all have to do the wajib, but then also the most highly recommended sunan and nawafil. And we will talk about what happens when we live a life like that too. There is a short video of Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali talks a lot about time management, purification of the heart, because time management ties in with the state of our hearts. Right? How is that? That a person who is conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose heart is not heedless, and heart is mindful of Allah, then they realize, like, wait a minute, I am on a time clock. I am, and this is like the first, even in a tazkiyah course we took with like studying the works of Ibn al-Qayyim, that's what he starts with. As soon as a person becomes mindful, the first thing they do is they start to take care of how they're using their time. They realize they're on a time clock, right? So what am I doing? And how do I pay attention? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he was advising Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he was becoming a Khalifa, he said to him a phrase that I love so much, that Allah has deeds that he accepts during the day, but he will not accept it at night. And he has deeds that he will accept in the nighttime that he does not accept during the day. So basically make sure that, where is it? To Allah belongs deeds that are done during the day that are not acceptable during the night, and the deeds that are done at night, they are not accepted during the day. What does that mean? Make sure that you're paying attention to what is the best thing that I can do at this specific time. And in our Islamic sciences, we call that haqqul waqt or faridatul waqt, the wajib of what is the obligation that we have with time. Let's watch this short video, and we're not going to watch all of it, but let's watch some of it. You have it if you want to go back to it, inshallah.
Your time is your life, and much like ice, it is constantly melting away. Do not let time go to waste. Know that time should not be without structure. You must order your day and night, organizing your routine of worship and assigning an activity to each period. This is a method for constant remembrance of God, a necessary ingredient in attaining spiritual happiness. Try to awake from sleep before dawn, a noble time, and let the first words in your heart and on your tongue be the remembrance of God. Purify your body and get dressed appropriately with the intention of obeying God. Pray in your home, then make your way to the mosque in tranquility and with remembrance of God. Pray with the congregation, which is 27 times better than a prayer alone. Do not fail to complete this profitable act, for if you are negligent, then what benefit is there for you in the pursuit of knowledge? After all, the fruit of knowledge is in acting upon it. Use your time until sunrise in 4 types of remembrance: supplication, glorification, recitation, and reflection. Reflect upon your mistakes and the nearness of your end, and carefully plan your day with the intention of obeying God. By the light of day, you should strive to occupy yourself with what benefits you in the hereafter. Use your time in one of 4 ways. The first is seeking useful knowledge. This is the best use of time and highest form of worship. Useful knowledge increases your God consciousness. If you are unable to acquire useful knowledge, use your time in extra prayers, or one of the 4 types of remembrance mentioned. The third use of time is to act in a way that will bring happiness to the hearts of believers, or make it easier for the righteous to accomplish good works, such as visiting the sick and feeding the poor. Finally, spending your time earning an honest living. To take care of yourself and your family is also a form of worship. However, beware of worldly greed, for it will ruin your religion. When the sun turns red, try and spend your time glorifying God. The sun should set while you are seeking forgiveness. One must also set aside time for worldly necessities, family, and community. Before you sleep, review your knowledge. Do not end your day in entertainment, for actions are according to the last of them. Know that sleep is like death, and waking is like resurrection. Be ready to meet God by sleeping in a state of purity with your will.
He works. And if there was a Muslim psychologist like no other, it's Imam Ghazali. I'll give you one selection, from the Bidayatul Hidayah. He starts off by speaking about organizing your day, the hours of your day. He says you should not have anything that is, you should make.
I'm gonna stop it and let you go back to that video, because that short talk, it's like only 3 minutes or 2 minutes left of the video. It's really beneficial, and he just summarizes the way Imam al-Ghazali spoke about time. What that video that we just watched right now, that's like how Imam al-Ghazali teaches about time management. So there are some prerequisites of time management. Before I try to manage my time, what is the intention? What is the purpose? Why am I doing it? And this is when I said, holding ourselves accountable, realizing that we're here, you're not in a state of heedlessness anymore. You're here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will be asked, you will be held accountable. So you wake up and you say, you know what? May Allah forgive me for what I have not done properly before. But from here on, I am responsible, and I will take care of my responsibilities. Then what happens? You go on a journey, or you embark on a path of growth by having higher aspirations. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you in this dunya? What does He want you to accomplish? When you stand in front of Him, and we talked about when the angels are taking up your soul up to Allah, what do you want them to say about you? What is it that you want that your life to stand for? What missions, and obviously it's connected to the worship of Allah, but then the worship of Allah is I don't know if I have that in the second one. All of our acts of worship are divided into 2 categories, right? What are they? The rights of Allah. This is worshiping Allah, like recitation of the Quran, istighfar, dhikr, salah, fasting, zakah, hajj. These are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there's the rights of other people, how we interact with other people and what we do with people. So how are you using that to design your life, okay? And then Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif, how come his name is not on there? So if you don't have anything exciting to do, then why would you stay up after Fajr? So there's that concept for a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that the early hours of the day after Fajr, those are the times of barakah. So if anybody needs to get things done that are important to them, then they need to utilize that time and use that time to stay up and do, and basically take a big chip at whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. Now, Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif said, if you don't have anything important to do, then why would you stay up? Sleep is maybe better for you, And he actually, in that video that I just paused, if you continue, Imam al-Ghazali talks about the same thing. He says that if a person cannot do good and stop harming others, then what should you do? Then just go ahead, go to sleep, But then what's life? What's life if you spend it in the state of sleep? And then what do you want to do, and why do you want to do it? Now, whenever we struggle with time, and this is something I've learned, is that if your why is not clear to you, if you're my intention is to do this for the sake of Allah and to stand in front of Allah and tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala why I did it, how I did it, and communicating that with myself and with Allah on regular basis. The more sincere we are, the more Allah fuels us to do the things that are important. Okay? The more sincere we are to Allah, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fuels us and uses us in what benefits Him. And if you look at these scholars that we mentioned that are so loved and their impact is great, you see that the scholars say their sincerity is probably the reason why they have become so effective. The more sincere somebody is, the more effective they are. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like make us sincere, ya Rabbal Alameen. And then find accountability. Now, this is something I was listening to the other day. Human beings, like we do so much better holding ourselves accountable with somebody else. Okay, there are people that are just, their personality type is that they are they're upholders. If you look up the work of a lady called what's her name? Anyways, she talks about 4 types of personalities. One of them is the upholder, and the upholder, they are naturally designed to follow the rules and do it, but that's not the majority of the people. And majority of the people are obligers. And obligers are people who do things because others are holding them accountable. It's so difficult for them to be self-starters or to do things on their own. And something I've learned with my coach, I remember feeling like, oh my God, like why do I struggle to just do the things that I want to do? Because nobody, like if you ask me, Kaltul, what's your mission and what do you want to do? I have like a 5-page thing of all the classes I want to teach and articles I want to write and things I want to do, and it's connected to my mission in life, right? And then it's like, why aren't you not doing it? Because nobody else knows about it. Because nobody else is in like, you have a deadline for this. I do better with that. And it was so hard for me to accept that. And then my coach one day said to me, like, could that just be okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, that's why we pray jama'ah at the masjid, because there's that support, there's that accountability in a social setting. Allah created us like that. We honor it and we use it. And then accompany people that safeguard and manage their time. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih, that a person will do what their closest friend does. Okay? And if you look at you will be the average of the 5 people you are with all the time. And this is something that is said by self-development gurus like Jim Rohn, I think. But basically, what does he mean? You will not outdo your friends. So look at them and see what is it that they're doing. How are they using their time? Also, looking at the Salaf, the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, the pious predecessors, the righteous people, the people you look up to, the people that you want to have as mentors in your life. Look at what they're doing and how are they using their time. I remember Nancy Tamra Gray, somebody that I reached out to be a mentor for me at some point. And the first day we met, guess what the topic was? I was like, how do you manage your time? And I'm still learning and benefiting from that conversation we had. I remember she was like, I knew you were going to ask me about this, and I brought all of my systems. And so she brought out her bag, and she took out 3 different notebooks. She said, this is how I manage my time. And I was like, 3 different notebooks? Like, I'm overwhelmed with just one. This is, how do you do that? But this is learned, this is learned. So diversifying your deeds to avoid boredom and burnout. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as human beings, He created us that we can't do the same thing over and over and over again. And so what should you do? Diversify your good deeds. Diversify the things that you do. Make a change in your schedule, because routines actually are as good as they are for us. They're not really, even from a brain science perspective, routines are not good for us. Our minds want difference. It wants to do something different. So choosing every week, and this is what that last week when we were talking about Salatul Janaza, how can we do it? Maybe do it twice in a month or once every week, or if you can't do it at all, maybe you do it once a month, so figuring out where can I put it, in which week can I put it in, visiting a sick person, cooking for somebody, doing something different every time, so that you also get as each amal, each deed has a different impact on you, right? The next slide, how should you invest your time? This is what we said, all deeds have 2 categories, and Imam al-Ghazali in that video talks about it. But learning is learning, the book of Allah, seeking beneficial knowledge, perform the nawafil. Let's go to the hadith that talks about that. So there's, time killers and time amplifiers, okay? So the procrastination, overconsumption of food, social media, entertainment, and socializing. Socializing with people, whether it is we're doing it through text messaging or hanging out with them. That those things really eat up a lot of our time, and they not only do they eat up our time, but they impact our spiritual self in a way, or our hearts and our bodies in a way where we're unable to be productive or to use our time wisely. So for example, if you're over consuming food, if you're eating all the time, what happens? Your body is lethargic, your body is tired, you think you're getting fuel, but no, you're not getting fuel. And obviously the type of food you're eating, like if I notice that if I'm, eating a lot of sugar, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm not very productive. But certain diets and certain foods, like right after you eat lunch, if I eat something that has a lot more vegetables and protein and less carbs, Khaltoon is very productive the hour after. If it's like pasta and rice, like it is in our, like the main food that we like to eat as Somalis, then what happens? I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm lethargic. So knowing how the food impacts your body, social media, what's interesting is that social media comes with a lot of benefit, and it also comes with so much harm. Knowing, like I was listening to this TED Talk the other day, and the speaker was saying, if you don't have a purpose and a mission for using social media, then you should not even be on it. Like, leave it. It's not, if you're just a consumer, that's not where you need to be, But if you are like somebody who's producing something, you're using it for that purpose, then you can be on it. Some of the things that it does, it actually plays with the way our mind works. We're not able, like it overloads you with information that you can't focus on what's most important, And so you'll see all these that's something I've been really contemplating, like how can I come up with a social media usage for me that would allow me to get done with what I want, but also like protect me from the things that I don't want, the scrolling, So one thing that did work for me at some point is only using it on a computer. So I don't get on Facebook or Messenger unless I am on a computer. Then that means I'm here and I'm working, and I'm going to use it for that, and then I'm going to be done, But then I don't have it on my phone, but guess what? Like, you have a browser and you could just go to Facebook. So sometimes I trick my own self, and it's just staying true to what you committed for your own self. My coach has this thing where she will go off of social media the last week of every month for a whole week. She will not touch it. She will not use it. Completely gone, tells people. And she's a coach. She has a social media following, but then she's like, you know what? I'm going to go take care of me and recenter and then come back. Can you do that on a daily basis? Like say, hey, every day, this is the time I use it. This is the time I don't use it. With everything, basically with everything. We talked about barakah and the things that bring about efficiency in our time. And then you have it in that document I shared with you guys. And then asking ourselves, like, wallahi, like, I know the struggle of like using our time wisely, and the struggle of finding ourselves running around in circles and not knowing what have I done with my day, My coach always asks me, like, whenever I complain about, oh my God, I don't know what I did, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm feeling this way, she just asks me one question: have you been writing what you're supposed to do? Have you been doing your, like, when I wake up or before I go to bed, I use this planner that tells me what are the 3 most important things that you're going to have to do tomorrow. If I write in it and I use it, I'm productive and I'm good and I'm happy. And alhamdulillah. And what I was telling you guys earlier, like, if the time of dhikr is honored, everything else is good, alhamdulillah. But if we don't do that, those little actions that we take that can impact us, then it takes away from our whole day. And if we let it go, if we let it happen in like consecutive number of days, it ends up completely derailing us, right? And taking us to a place where we did not want to be. But then we can easily come back, inshallah. And with support, with encouragement, with like helping. This is what the surah about. It's not just doing it on your own. It's about doing it with a community, doing it with others, doing it, having, like realizing that as believers, we have a personal struggle, but that personal struggle is also a community struggle. So how do we all come together and support one another? If anyone ever wants to reach out to me, like I do, obviously not right now, I'm having a child, but I do coaching one-on-one with people, and this is like something I love to do. So if you want to like talk about your time and how you use it, I would love for me to help you come up with a schedule that works for you. So, and then the next ayah, we are all in a state of loss. All of mankind is definitely and for sure in a loss. What kind of a loss? Punishment, destruction, bad luck. Person who is not mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mindful of the fact that they are on a time clock and that they're moving towards meeting their time and meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They live a life that isn't like, it's not a life that is meaningful, and you see people say, like, what's the purpose of my life? What am I doing this for? And like we hit dark places because the simple idea of we don't know where we're heading, we don't know what direction we're going to. And Imam al-Qurtubi, he says the reality of diminishing and regressing, and what he means by that is that all of mankind are like, when you're born and you're little and you're powerless, and then you become an adult and you're strong in your physical abilities, in your mental capacity, and then with time you regress, and then when you reach an old age, you're maybe not able to think as clearly, you're not able to use your strength as much, your body has given up, your body is falling apart. So so realizing all that as well. Nu'man Ali Khan, I think Surat AlAsr is a surah that he does really well. If you just look up the tafsir of it online, he talks about, he gives a beautiful analogy. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but it's basically like, if you think of it as people are all drowning, and everybody is drowning, and then some people are able to figure out how to come up and not drown and support one another. And they're all holding on to one another. But then you see everybody in a state of, we're here, we're swimming, we're drowning, and people are trying to pull you down. Chains are pulling, things are pulling you down, and you're trying to go up, and you're trying to create a group of supporters that you go up with. And this is like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the principles of success. He makes an exception for 4 types of people: those who have iman, we believe in Allah, in His messengers, in books, in His angels, in the day of judgment, in the qadar. We believe in these things, and out of belief in all of these things, I'm going to act and do the things that will bring about the benefit for me. We will encourage with one another to the truth. So I guess the next slides go in details. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, what is the connection between faith and action? Anytime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word amanu in the Quran, He follows it up with وَعَمِلُ الصَّالِحَاتِ. It never comes by itself. And there's this ayah here that I absolutely love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surat Zumar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَّنْ هُوَ قَانِتٌ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ سَاجِدًا وَقَائِمًا. As for the one who is like completely obedient to Allah, during in the middle of the night, he is in a state of sujood, and he's in a state of standing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being mindful or protecting themselves of the punishments that might come on the day of judgment. وَيَرْجُو رَحْمَةَ رَبِّهِ, and they're hoping and seeking the mercy of their Rabb. قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ? Are they the same, those who have knowledge and those who don't have knowledge? إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, only those who have reason, those who remember Allah, are the ones who have a reason, who have they're reflecting and pondering over the knowledge Allah has given them. And this ayah is basically showing us that this behavior of beautiful worship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us, like they're in a state of qiyam, they're doing dhikr, they're doing their ibadah in the middle of the night when everybody else is sleeping. That person, what made them do that? It's the knowledge that they had, right? Are they the same people who have knowledge and people who don't have knowledge? So then what we draw from it is that knowledge is what will make your iman solid, right? Because iman leads to action, but before you have action, the prerequisite is having knowledge, having knowledge. Imam al-Bukhari, in his book, Sahih al-Bukhari, he starts with a chapter called Al-Ilmu Qabla al-Qawli wal-Amal, that knowledge comes before you even do anything and before you say anything. You have to know what it is that you're saying. And Imam al-Awza'i, he says, no iman without action, no actions without iman. So that the two go hand in hand together. Aisha, I should read and take your recommendation, but let me see. 1, 2, 3. 3 slides. Let's have patience. Let's have patience. How do we decide on what actions to take? How do you know? And this is a hadith where the hadith Qudsi, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will declare war against anyone who is hostile towards any of my pious worshippers. And that what basically, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that my slave comes near, like let me move this a little bit. And the most beloved thing with which my slave comes nearer to me, like I'm seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is that? What is the most beloved thing to Allah? Is that the things that He made obligatory. So my 5 daily prayers, fasting Ramadan, these things are the most beloved things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we do the wajib, right? That's bare minimum, yes, but they're also the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then after that, what can we do? Performing the nawafil, basically doing your sunnah fajr, your sunnah for the salawat, your recitation of the Quran, your fasting Mondays and Thursdays, fasting the 3 days of the week, going to a janazah, doing these things that are extra, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love it so much that He will love you in return. Then when Allah loves you, He will become your sense of hearing, with which a person will hear, a sense of sight, a sense of seeing, with the hand that he grips with and the legs that he walks with. If he asks me, I will give him. If he seeks protection, I will protect him. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become our guide in all of these things. When we see something, we see with the eyes of Allah. When we hear with the hearing of Allah. When we use our hands, the ability that we have is an ability that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fueling, right? I am so in need of that. I am so in need of that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give it to all of us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give it to us, Ya Rab. And what I love, this hadith ends with, Allah does not hesitate to do anything, but He will hesitate to take the life of this person, because this person hates to die. We all hate to die. And Allah says, I hate to disappoint him. I don't want to disappoint this person. So imagine, whatever dua you ask Allah, Allah gives it to you. Whatever you ask Allah to protect you from, Allah protects you from it. And, how do we become these people? Simply, you do the obligations, you do the sunan, and you continue on that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of us. So how are we using our time, designing our days and nights with this hadith in mind? Time is it? Okay, support one another to the truth. They don't only benefit themselves, rather their concern is also to benefit others. The Prophet ﷺ, I love this hadith, he says that khayrun nas anfa'uhum lin nas, the most beloved people to Allah are the most beneficial to the people. And it's a hadith Hasan by Imam al-Albani, asking ourselves too on regular basis, how beneficial are we to others? we live in a culture, in a society where being being individualistic is basically like the theme, like taking care of you come first, fill your cup first, and these things are important, yes, but then we don't neglect the importance of taking care of others and supporting others and being there for others, and that sometimes you might do it while you're extremely exhausted and you need that time for yourself, but then the reward of it is like unimaginable. The Prophet ﷺ said that I go for an hour to help my brother complete something that is important to them in their dunya affairs is more beloved to me than I stay in a state of i'tikaf a whole month in this Masjid al-Nabawi. Imagine if somebody told you, hey, can you come and you want to go for Umrah for a whole month and you stay in Medina and you just stay in the Masjid al-Nabawi, and you're like, oh my God, that's a dream come true, right? We'll all jump on it. But guess what's more beloved to Allah, more important, like the Prophet ﷺ is saying, is more beneficial, is that I go and I support this one person for 1 hour is more beloved to me. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people who are in service to others, because even though it seems like we're going to be depleted, the reality is we are filled with energy that is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of it. Is truth one or is it multiple? And this is, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. They call one another to the haqq. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he once, made a drawing, and he said, this is the way of Allah, and these are all the paths that come off of it, So could the truth be more than one, or is it just one? So if you're thinking of the truth that leads us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our akhirah, it's only one. There's no differences, right? But then when it comes to what is the best way to create this microphone, sky is the limit, right? And there is difference of opinion is valid, and difference of opinion is okay, and it should be respected. But then being mindful to the fact that what we're calling one another to is the truth that leads us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that can only be one. And so if I am calling you to the truth and I'm so eager for you to have the truth, then what comes before that is the love that I have for you. And that love that I have for you, like I'm so eager for you to have it, I'm going to make sure that I do it in the best way possible, and that I ask myself on a regular basis, is this the best way possible for me to support this person and show them the truth? Imam Shafi'i used to say, about he's a scholar, so he's debating with other scholars. And he said one time that the difference between the early generations and the later generations is that we would debate. In the beginning, they would debate with one another, hoping and making dua like, Ya Allah, do not let my brother or my sister say the wrong thing. We do not want them to be in the wrong. Whereas the state of the later generations is that they want the other person to say something wrong so that their ego, like, I'm better, I am more correct, right? So Imam Shafi'i has a phrase where he says, my statements or my words are correct as far as I know, but then there's a possibility of them being wrong. So when I'm listening to you, I'm going to listen to an open heart, an open mind, and question myself, like, is this really, like, should I really believe this, or could this person be right? And then you are debating me, or you're talking to me, you're bringing me an opinion. Your words are incorrect, but then there's the possibility of them being correct. They're incorrect because I don't agree with it, right? But here you are, you're presenting it. There's a possibility of it being correct. If I don't have an open mind, I will not see it. So what is the intention? We keep the goal in mind, is that we are all trying to say and come to opinions or about the truth, about what is the truth, about what is the best way to worship Allah, what is the best way to pray, what is the best way to raise our children, what is the best way to build schools, what is the best way to build a health system, all these things that benefit human beings and benefit humanity. there's like, there could be multiple ways, but then there's also that one way where it's serving of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So doing that, keeping that in mind, learning the art of persuasion, advice, and communicating with one another. These are things that help us. Something I've been making dua for, like when you have something you want to get out of a relationship, but you're really struggling, like, and you don't know, and sometimes you realize, like, I know there's something that is blinded from me, like I can't see it, and just asking Allah, Ya Allah, like I'm in need of this knowledge. I need to know how to do A, B, and C so that I could get to this goal that I want, like within this relationship or in this supporting relationship. My throat is getting super dry. Support one another in patience. Now we know patience is one of those things the Quran talks about so much. It talks about so much. Like I was reading somewhere that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about patience in the Quran over 90 times. Okay? What does it mean? It means to restrain the self from that which it should not do. Restraining the self, saying no, like I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna cross this. And there are 3 types of patience, and this is what we learn. 3 types of patience. Patience upon obedience, patience against disobedience, and patience on the things that come at us in life that we are tested with, and we have basically we just have to be patient with it. Now, the last one, the scholars say, the last one, even though it seems like the most difficult, when we imagine something really difficult happening to us, we think we're gonna die, we're gonna lose our life, it's gonna be the end of our life, when the reality is, with time, we forget, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easier. Yes, the pain is always there, but with time, the pain gets lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser, and this is the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He created us as beings that are able to forget, right? So it's not the hardest one. The second one, patience from or against disobedience, is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear to me that something is not permissible, I might, and I decide I'm going to do this, it'll be hard the first stages, right? Once it becomes a habit, I know that thing is no longer a desire. That thing, I no longer care for it. And I remember before I started practicing, I used to think music is one of those things I can never give up. I will never be able to give up. Music runs in my bloodstreams. That's what I used to tell my brothers. And when I started practicing, it was the weirdest thing ever. I never actually even made a decision. It just stopped. I stopped craving it. I stopped wanting it. And then one day I took that opportunity. I took all of my CDs, and those were so precious to me. And I gave it to another woman. I said, you know what, take it. And I did it thinking Khaltoon, take advantage of this feeling because you never had it in your life. You've never not cared for music. Do I not care for it till this day? And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes certain things haram. He still makes us love it while it is haram. And so we stop it, even though our hearts might not hate it, but we recognize how damaging it is, right? So a person who said, who, let's say, grew up with alcohol as being part of their life and their culture, and it's not anything they've ever associated negativity with, then they have to stop it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them to do it. It's not going to be easy because let's say this person just really enjoyed it, but now they stopped it because they were seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah makes it easy for them, and at some point, yes, they might still entertain the idea, but then it's not like they're struggling or that they're fighting themselves, but then there might be a stage where they are going through that, right? Now, patience upon obedience. This is the one our scholars say it's the most difficult one, because this is the one we have to show persistence and consistency in until the day we die, until we meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if I'm, alhamdulillah, Allah has made it easy for me to establish my daily 5 prayers, that means for the rest of my life, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. and pray Fajr. And if that's a struggle for you, then for the rest of your life, you have to be patient to wake up at 5 a.m. Will there be time where it becomes natural? Allah Ta'ala alam. Yes, probably it will. But these are things that we struggle with all the time, because our nafs likes to rest, our nafs likes to relax, our nafs does not want to do a lot of hard work. And Jannah is earned by doing hard work in this dunya. So being patient upon obedience is the hardest one of the three. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that whomsoever seeks patience, Allah makes him patient. Now, I struggle with something, and this thing has become so difficult for me. And I've personally had like so many of those. I could count so many. But then the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that if you practice it, Allah will make it easier for you. Like, إِنَّمَا الصَّبْرُ بِالتَّصَبُّرِ. That sabr or patience is shown or is achieved by practicing it. It's not something that comes easily. Like, that's why sometimes we get frustrated with ourselves. Like, I know this, but I'm not doing it. Like, and why I started doing it and then I gave up. And, patience is basically building habits, right? And creating habits are the things that help you be most successful in life. But then it's also the most difficult things to do, because it's not natural. But what the Prophet ﷺ is saying is that if you seek it from Allah, Allah will help you. So I remember there was something I was struggling with, and it really reached a point of like complete desperation to Allah. Like, I just really wanted to accomplish this. And somebody gifted me a bottle of Zamzam water. So guess what I did? I hit that bottle of water and I started waking up every day. When I wake up, I would drink it and I would make dua. Ya Allah, make this easy for me. Ya Allah, make this easy for me. Ya Allah, make this easy for me. I think I did it for 30 days. Wallahi, like the way it had become so natural and a part of me, I just can't even imagine. Like, it was like a magic pill that Allah allowed me to have. And it was simple, making dua, using Zamzam water, and saying like, Ya Allah, I struggle with this, and you're the only one that can get it done. Like, I've done everything, but you're the only one that can do this for me. And it worked. Subhana Rabbil Izzah, This is the power of dua as well. So asking ourselves, where do we need patience in our lives today? Where do we need patience in our lives today? And it's different for each one of us. What is it that I'm struggling with? Is it a disobedience? Is it an obedience? Is it in the qadr of Allah? And how can we support one another? So the ayah is all about supporting one another. But if I didn't do it properly, if I don't practice it myself, I can't help my sister. I can't help my son. I can't show it to my husband. So realizing that what we do for our own selves, we can also extend the hand to our friends and our family and our community members and say, like, I know this is hard. I'm here for you. You need to talk about it. I'm here for you. You want more information? I'm here for you. Just saying that, like, reach out, I'm available. You know what I mean? The Prophet ﷺ said, amazing is the affair of the believer. If anything wrong, bad happens to them, he's patient. And I remember my sister-in-law, her son passed away. He was 16 years old. I think I told you guys his story last time. I don't know, maybe I didn't. But anyways, he had cancer, and it happened to him when he was like 6 years old. He was cured, alhamdulillah, and then it came back when he was 12, and then 4 years later he passed away. And it was like pretty sad, But something she said to me, like, when I would see her, she said to me, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would go to his room and I would tell myself, maybe today is the day where he died and he went back to Allah. And I would just check on him and I would say, Adam, are you breathing? Or are you alive? And he would say, yes, Hoya, I'm alive. And she would say, okay, Mama, like I was saying salam, and she would leave the room. And she told me that when he was first hit with cancer, that was not her, that she was extremely, extremely unaccepting of what had happened to her son. So unaccepting, like people used to tell her like this. She said, I used to think that I'm going to do kufr, like I'm going to basically disbelief in Allah because of the way I was reacting. But she said, I made a lot of dua because I knew like I could not go through this without it. And so she would just wake up and she would pray and she would do her qiyam and she would check on her son and say, are you alive today or not? And accepting. So the day he passed away, and I remember we went to the house, I went upstairs to see her. she was just sitting on her sajjada, and she was like, just saying like, it happened. Today was the day it happened. I still don't know how a woman is able to do that, or how a person can say that. May Allah not test us, My friend, my Sheikh Omar Sulaiman, he says, may Allah give me the reward of that person, but do not test me with it. Do not test me with their test. And you should say that. But how a person is able to do that, Subhana Rabbil Izzah. So it takes stages. Patience is not something that you have overday. Like, it's something that is developed. It's something that you practice. It's a muscle that you build. So may Allah give it to us where we need it the most. May Allah give it to us where we need it the most. What's interesting is that my sister-in-law, her daughters, whenever, because I was their teacher, whenever they're asked about their role model, one of them would say it was her mom, because she would say, my mom's always being tested, but she's so patient. And she lost her son, but she really struggled for like over 10 years to have a child. And she's had multiple miscarriages, some of which were stillborn, and some were actually delivered and passed away and died. So she's had maybe six or seven pregnancies and some deliveries, but only 2 living children now. And the test, like, Allah tests people in different ways. But whatever it is we're struggling with, whether it is obedience of Allah, a sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our hearts attached to, but it's not good for us, or like a situation that Allah tested us with, we can show patience by seeking help from Allah. What is the opposite of patience? The opposite of patience is something called jaza' in Arabic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran is سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْنَا أَصَبَرْنَا أَمْ جَزَعْنَا. People in hellfire will say, whether we show patience or we are in a state of jaza', then what will happen? Nothing. Like, we will not be getting out of this painful punishment. And jaza' is whatever that a person feels of worry, of overwhelm, of like tightness of the heart, and not being able to show patience, not being able to show not being able to show persistence in that thing, right? Now, one thing I do want to add, because it's a cultural, it's in the culture of Islam, of Muslims, right? It's not in Islam, but it's in the culture of Muslims, is that one of my teachers once came to our class, and she was talking to my teenagers, and she shared a story about how she was so proud of an individual that in her life that left an abusive marriage, because she recognized, she said what she made her feel proud was the fact that this person left this marriage because she knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored me, and I am not going to be patient with an abusive person that is dehumanizing me, that is either beating me or emotionally, verbally abusing me and taking away my human dignity. And so she left that marriage, and she did not stay patient with it. So I remember writing a blog post about it. And then that same day, one of my very dear friends called me, and she was struggling in her marriage. I don't know, I don't want to call it like there was abuse or anything like that. Allah Ta'ala alam what she was struggling with, but she was really struggling in her marriage, and there was things that were just like not acceptable happening, and she just didn't know what to do. So she called me, and she said that she was blown away by the idea that true patience is not staying in a state of abuse and waiting. It's leaving the abuse and being patient with the social consequences that come with it, or the difficulties that you endure because of it, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be patient with, not be patient in a state of being abused. So she said that she was surfing and looking up opinions about what to do with her marriage, and that she came across a fatwa online by a Muslim sheikh where a woman says to him, my husband came back drunk last night and he beat me up and now I'm bleeding. What do you think I should do? And the sheikh says to her, this is your test. Will you be patient? Will you be patient and stay in it and take care, and fulfill your wife responsibilities? So I remember thinking, like, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. yes, there are some Muslim scholars who say that, but this is not correct, and this is not from our deen, and that abuse and being beat up, and that, you know, being your human rights being taken away from you is not something Allah is pleased with. So we're never ever doing it for the sake of Allah. We're not honoring the person Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to be. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I know it's like the topic of abuse is it's talked a lot about. I just hope that we can also carry that information to people. I have a friend, an online friend, mashallah, it's an amazing, I found it. Alhamdulillah. I've been really looking for this, making dua, I find it, and I found it. Anyways, this sister has a blog post about how she left an abusive marriage where she used to get like physically abused by her husband, and she left because one day she was sitting at the musalla in a university, and she saw the last sermon of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he's commanding people, this is the way you live, and then he's telling men to be dutiful and take care of the rights of their women. And she said, this is not the type of marriage I am in, and because of it she left it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like has opened doors of blessings, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward her, because of that experience, she's like, it fueled her energy to do what she's doing today in the life that she's leading. So knowing that and sharing it with our sisters and with our brothers is like supporting one another in proper patience, not improper patience that is talked about and is prevalent in our communities sometimes. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. So what are the lessons that stood out to you from this surah? What actions is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling you to be patient with? And then the exercise is to create your own ideal schedule. With worship, wajib, nawafil that you want to do, being the center, the center of it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. So glad we finished today, you guys. I really hope